Hey everybody, what's going on? It's James here with Crypto Common Sense, and I have your Bitcoin / cryptocurrency update for Sunday, April the 5th. So the weekly close is going to be happening today. It's 6 or 7 hours away right now, and I wanted to get this video knocked out early because I've been working during the day and sleeping in the evenings. So going to knock this out. I'm going to cover a lot of stuff. The video is going to talk a lot about crypto. We're going to talk about the stock market. I'm going to talk about COVID-19, some of the data on COVID-19, because not only does it affect us personally, health-wise, family-wise, but it also has a big impact on the market. Going to be a busy video, but I wanted to sit down and do this. Also, I'm going to walk through the course that people have been asking me to shoot an overview video for 4 or 5 months now, and I just never have sat down and actually shot that walkthrough. So I'm going to give you a chance to take a look at the course today as well. Before I jump into the content though, please do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and of course don't forget to click that bell icon. I noticed in my last couple of videos the views were down by about 20 to 30%, and so that's not good, right? If we're not getting enough views, it doesn't justify doing the videos. So make sure you do that stuff so that YouTube keeps sticking my videos up in their algorithm and people keep watching the channel, so that it's justified in spending the time shooting the videos. Okay? So first things first, if you haven't joined the Patreon yet, I would highly recommend you do so. I do more frequent updates in there, and I committed to doing at least 3 videos a week when we reached $1,000 a month. We have not reached it yet, but I've been doing several updates a week, more than 3 anyway, right? So listen, really love to have you in there. If you're getting value out of these videos, I tried to price this in a way that would make it a complete no-brainer for everybody. There's a $4.95 level. There's also a $7 level. So basically, like a nice cup of coffee. I don't actually drink coffee, but that's what I'm told is $5 will get you a nice cup of coffee. So that's what I priced it at, and hopefully everybody that watches these videos says, yeah, this dude definitely gives me more than $5 a month worth of content. All right, so I would definitely appreciate that. Side note, it was a little bit weird. I don't know a lot about Patron, but I've been kind of looking at some of the other Patron channels. I saw this one guy, and he was charging like $20 a month for his Patreon, had like 800 or 900 people in there. And in the comments, it actually said, if I can get to XYZ, I can quit my job and focus full-time on crypto. And it just blew my mind that people were subscribing to these channels. And I'm not hating. I'm not going to say who it was or anything like that. It shocked me, right? Like, you have a guy who's literally telling you right in your face, I don't do this for a living. And yet people are paying him for his viewpoints on the market, which I found extraordinary, right? It's a little bit strange. So anyway, maybe a lot of people said, hey dude, you should have charged more. Maybe so. I'm not going to change it. $4.95 and $7, those are the 2 plans. I want to make sure that everybody's getting a super great value, and I don't do Patreon for a living. I actually do trade for a living. So this is just a little bonus for me that helps justify this side passion project of mine. Also, if you don't want to join Patreon, a lot of people ask me for an option to pay with cryptocurrency. I went through the trouble setting that up. Not one single person has paid with cryptocurrency. So for all of you who asked, please do me a favor. Head to the link in the description and sign up, because you asked for it. I spent the time setting it up, so I would appreciate that. Okay? So let's talk first about some COVID-19 stuff, and then we'll jump into some charts. So I have actually blocked several people who were longtime followers of mine, and had some very nasty conversations with some longtime followers who I thought were decent people over this COVID-19 stuff. So I'm just going to tell you guys and girls watching this video, if you're one of these tinfoil hat wearing goofballs running around telling people that this is all fake, and this is a way for the new world order to take effect, and this is a way for the government to take away your rights and all that, you need to stop. Okay? You're doing a lot more harm than you are good. People are dying from this. It is deadly serious, and the cases are exploding. So the last person that I blocked was actually a member of my Facebook group for 2 years, was one of my fans, would come to my defense when people had something bad to say, but this was like a no-go. His comment on this COVID-19 was, people die every day, that's life. Not cool, right? Not cool at all. So listen, here's the deal. On April 1st in the United States, we had over 200,000 positive cases of COVID-19. We had 31,000 or just over 31,000 people hospitalized, and we had 4,700 deaths up to that point. That broke down. I actually have the numbers here. As of April 1st, we were seeing about a 2.23% mortality rate. Now, that's of the positive test results. We do not know how many people are walking around with COVID-19 but not showing symptoms. So the mortality rate is obviously going to be lower, but this is just on the data we have, 2.23%. To put that in perspective, the flu's mortality rate is around 0.1%. So this is 22 times more deadly according to these statistics, which are, again, flawed. The death rate for those hospitalized, this is the most concerning. For the people that went into a hospital and were admitted to that hospital for COVID-19, 15% of those people did not make it back out alive. That's nearly 1 in 5. It's very scary. Fast forward 3 days to April 4th. This is the last time the data came in. Obviously today's the 5th, but this is from yesterday's data. The mortality rate has now jumped from 2.23% to 2.71%, which is massive. And the death rate for those hospitalized with COVID-19 has jumped from 15 to 21.64%. That means that's more than 1 in 5, right? People are dying from this. It's very, very serious. Total U.S. deaths, 8,314. Again, the most startling thing about that is the fact that just 3 days ago, the U.S. deaths were at 4,700. So it almost doubled, not quite doubled, but, you know, look, almost 4,000 people died in 3 days. That's not what we want to see. We're starting to see that curve that you know, all these experts have been talking about, that, for lack of a better term, you know, if you're looking at a trading chart, you'd start to call it the start of the parabolic run, right? And that's exactly what they're worried about, is this thing's going to reach critical mass where it overloads the healthcare system. And we now have over 300,000 positive test results for coronavirus or not, novel coronavirus in the United States. So the reason these numbers matter, first off, financials aside, they matter because we're all people and we're all susceptible to this thing. I had one guy on Twitter who was, arguing with me that this could not kill anybody under 65, that it hadn't, and that the stats saying otherwise were made up stats. Guys, use your freaking brain. We live in an age of the internet. Do you know how hard it is to keep a secret in the age of the internet? This is not 1950, where all we have to go off of is the propaganda being fed to us by the governments, right? In the age of the internet, in the age of where everybody has a video camera, it is very, very difficult to have any type of major cover-up. I do not believe for 1 second that they're lying about the deaths. I do not believe for 1 second that people under 65 are not getting sick from this thing, right? I live in a very small town. There's only about 35,000 people that live here. We already have confirmed cases. We already have an isolation area at the local hospital. And I know that. One of the guys that works for my brother, his wife is a respiratory therapist. She works at that hospital, and she come home and said, look, this is really, really bad. So, you don't have those types of situations where friends of friends and, things like that are coming to work saying, hey, this is serious stuff. So if you're not taking this seriously, please do, for your own safety and for the safety of others. Whether you're young and healthy and all that, you can still spread it to people who aren't. Okay. So why does that matter from a chart perspective? Because listen, the worse this gets, the worse the economy is going to take a hit. The longer we're shut down, the more the economy tanks. The more the economy tanks, the more stock market tanks. And so far, the stock market has been a leading indicator for Bitcoin. So if the stock market is going down and people are fearful about their money, it doesn't make a lot of sense psychologically that they're suddenly going to start investing in the riskiest asset on earth, or one of the riskiest assets. People are going to go to what they know and trust, and that's going to be things like precious metals, right? Historically, we've seen in the beginning of recessions, gold often takes a big dump, but then it starts to be where people put their money as they realize their cash is losing value. Could that happen again? It could. Now, the hope for a lot of people is, Bitcoin's going to be the new store of value. Guys, that is a complete fallacy. There's absolutely no evidence to support that Bitcoin is going to become a store of value in this crisis. Is it possible? Yes. Is it proven? No. Is there any evidence at all to support that idea? No, there's not. Every time Bitcoin has crashed 70 or 80 or 90% in the past decade, it was during a raging global bull market. That market has ended. The global bull market is over. The market has now shifted to a bear. Bitcoin has never existed in a bear market. We have absolutely no data to back up what it will or will not do. Okay? Period. So if you are investing in Bitcoin because somebody has convinced you that it's going to suddenly go up to $100,000, good luck. That's all I can tell you. All right? Let's get these stats off the screen. Let's take a look at a couple of charts real quick. All right. First chart I'm going to look at is actually a US dollar chart. Okay? Now, listen, I do not trade Forex. I've never traded Forex. I'm not a Forex expert. I had to do research and all this stuff a few weeks ago when theories started floating around about the US dollar collapsing. I had somebody comment about this in the Facebook group yesterday or the day before, right? This fear-mongering that the US dollar is suddenly going to collapse to zero or become hyperinflated to where a loaf of bread costs $1,000, right? It's not backed up by the charts. Anything is possible, but guys, the world economy is based on the US dollar. And I'm not an economics major, so I don't understand all the little different, nuances to economics, and I don't want to sit here and pretend otherwise. What I can tell you is when you look at charts like, for example, the Japanese yen, which is supposed to be one of the safe havens for fiat currency, it's not just destroying the US dollar, right? The US dollar is not being destroyed by this. In fact, it's really just been moving sideways for a couple of years with this slow grind down, right? This could be looked at as a symmetrical triangle, right? Some people might also call this a descending triangle, right? Possible, sure. It's a monthly chart, right? But whatever you call that, it's not signaling a collapse of the US dollar. It's just not, okay? It's not. If you zoom out and you look at it, and again, who knows, but when you zoom out and look at it, it looks more like a pennant, which is actually a bullish signal, right? The point being, if people were worried about the US dollar collapsing, you should see big red candles on this chart, right? We're not seeing those yet. Another currency that is supposedly one of the safer fiat currencies is the Norwegian, I guess it's called krone. I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm sorry. But essentially, because they don't have a lot of debt, or maybe they don't have any debt, I don't remember exactly what I read, it's supposed to be one of the safer assets. Again, when you look at this, the US dollar is gaining value versus that not losing it, okay? So this idea that the US dollar is in danger of going to zero because the government came up with the stimulus package, long term, I do think it's bad, right? I'm not a big fan of borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. I don't think it's a great idea. I worry about the long-term economic impacts of such a package. I worry about the fact that we're giving handouts to all these people who, I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference for them. I really don't. And I'm not trying to be like stuck up or anything like that, but I remember what it was like to be poor, right? I was poor. We were semi-poor when I was growing up, maybe lower middle class. And when I was in my late teens on my own, after my dad had passed away, I was dirt poor. Like no utilities, snow on the ground outside, sleeping in a house with the busted out windows poor, right? Trying to figure out how I could get together a quarter to go buy some noodles poor. So I know what it's like to be poor, and somebody giving me a $1,200 check would have been great for about a month. And then I would have been right back to where I started. So I'm concerned about this bailout. I'm also concerned about the fact that so many corporations are going to get so much of that money who don't deserve it, right? So I'm not in any way supportive of the bailout. I think it's risky. I just don't think that it's going to suddenly make the US dollar collapse and go to zero, because if so, what happens to all these other world currencies, right? That's the type of, what I would call a black swan event where I don't know that there's anything you can really do to prepare for it, right? maybe if you're living on your own land and you have a sustainable farm where you're growing your own food and all that kind of stuff, sure, you're probably prepared for that Stone Age type of situation. But for the majority of the population, there's not a lot we can do to prepare for that. One of my Discord members pointed out the other day that in the Great Depression in 1929, right, the majority of the U.S. population lived on farms. And that's the only reason they made it through the Depression, was because they had some way to at least grow their own food or get their own milk, eggs, etc. Well, that's obviously shifted. Very few people live on farms in 2020. Most of the farms are larger farms now where they're supplying, thousands or hundreds of people with their food. And, probably 90% of the population is not living on farms now. So as far as where you put your fiat, people are like, well, buy gold. Good luck with that. What kind of gold are you going to buy? You're going to buy an ETF, a gold ETF, a paper gold, right? Good luck, because we go back in the Stone Ages and we go back to, this idea that the dollar is going to zero and society collapses. You're not going to have access to your paper gold. Sorry. The internet's not going to work, folks. Power is probably not going to work, right? So your paper gold is worth shit, okay? Okay, well, you're going to buy physical gold. Okay, great. So you have this big bar of physical gold, or you have these gold coins, and let's say your gold coin is worth, at the current time, a 1 ounce gold coin is worth around $1,600. Super. Now you want to go buy a loaf of bread. Where are you buying it from? If manufacturing is shut down and nobody's working, no one's making bread, what the hell are you going to do with that gold? Right? People don't really use common sense, and they don't really use logic. Well, I'm going to buy gold, I'll be safe. No, you're not, because if the dollar collapses and the economy collapses and society breaks down, no one is producing goods. There are no goods to buy. It doesn't matter if you have gold. Doesn't friggin' matter, right? So my whole point of that is number one, I don't know how you prepare for that, right? But number two, if you can't prepare for it, then let's just prepare for what we can, and let's use some common sense and try to have a little faith that things are going to work out, right? I get really irritated with people who spread that fear-mongering because they never back it up with data. It's just these one-offs. Well, the government just printed $2 trillion of money. And the government has been printing money. We all know it's a ticking time bomb. We all know eventually where that's going to lead if something doesn't change. But it's not going to suddenly go there because they did it one time. They've been doing it, right? That's why money loses its value. I wanted to knock that out. I know the video is kind of long, but guys, this stuff is all important because all of that stuff impacts cryptocurrency, right? All of that stuff that I just shared with you is what the average Joe who doesn't know about investing, who doesn't know about trading, right? They don't know how to read a chart. They don't know about technical analysis. They're reading these headlines and they're getting terrified, right? They're being scared to death that, the economy is going to zero and that the dollar is going to zero. And in that environment, these people are not looking to invest their money in risky assets. They're trying to figure out what they can put their money into that will hold its value. Okay? So let's look at a Bitcoin chart. This is going to be a really long video, I can tell, because I'm already at 20 minutes and I haven't even pulled up a Bitcoin chart. Let's see. Let's look at the weekly first. Now, again, today is the weekly close, but it's not closed yet. Okay, so a lot can happen over the next 6 or 7 hours. But so far, this is what I'm seeing on the weekly chart. Number one, on this, hash ribbons, I'm going to take these off because I don't trade these anyway. But they're still showing capitulation. They haven't signaled any kind of buy signal. On the RSI, we came up for the third week in a row. We've tested this upward sloping trend line. And really, if we keep testing that thing, it's going to break. It's only a matter of time if it keeps getting tested. Eventually, it will break. So really, I need to see a rejection, and I need to see this thing start moving back down. Otherwise, I'm going to lean toward this going higher, maybe as high as $8,000, trying to wash out some bears, right? The thing about this chart, and again, we're talking more fundamental ideas here, is we do have the halving coming up. And I suspect that the powers that be, the whales, the manipulators, whatever you want to call them, they've got this narrative that they can latch onto. If they can convince Joe Retail to, FOMO into that halving, they may be able to use that event to pump Bitcoin. Now, how high, I don't know, right? But they may be able to use that event and pump Bitcoin and get one more good swipe at the retail investor, the retail trader, right? That's what they've been doing this whole time. Bitcoin has been moving down for close to a year, but they throw these big pumps out there and they get people excited. People FOMO in and then they dump on them, right? They dump their bags. And it's funny because I was looking through YouTube at some of the other YouTube channels, you know, many of the YouTube channels that were super bullish last month, their last video was over a month ago now, right? I saw one channel that I actually commented on, which I almost never do, but she was saying it's almost all but guaranteed that you'll become a millionaire if you invest in crypto. And this was February 14th, right? We all know what happened right after that. And I commented saying, look, I've been doing this for a couple of years, and if there's anything that's for sure, it's that this is not guaranteed. And she came back, was very polite, and said, well, this is my personal belief, blah, 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 right? And I said, well, good luck with it. You know, I didn't, you know, give her too hard of a time. Her channel, she can say whatever she wants. But somebody commented on my comment today, so I got like the little notification. When I went and looked, her last video was in February. Well, shocker. And the last video she did was telling people that Bitcoin might be going to $380,000. Right? Not cool, folks. That's what happens. You get these people who don't know what they're talking about. Now you got people listening to somebody that doesn't even know what they're doing. When I look at this, again, you see this line, this trend line, it's still underneath it. As long as we're underneath it, that's bearish in nature. We see this red horizontal line of resistance. As long as we're underneath it, it's bearish in nature, right? A break and close above that line on a weekly would definitely make me turn short-term bullish, thinking that a pump toward 8,000 was in order, okay? Until then, no, I'm not bullish. Until then, no, I'm not going to consider, I'll consider, but I don't believe this was the bottom back here, okay? Of course, on the bullish side of things, really, we're still above the 200-week moving average, so we're still in pretty good shape, right? We're not seeing any kind of move down to new lows yet, so it's kind of, on the weekly chart, just a waiting game, right? And patience is a virtue, guys. There's a saying, I don't remember the exact saying or the exact quote, but basically it's something along the lines of markets will take money from, you know, markets have a way of moving money from the impatient to the patient or something like that, right? And I think that's definitely the case. If you try to rush into this and you're constantly trying to catch the pivot, it tends to blow up in your face, okay? So for me, I'm not trying to catch the pivot. You know, like I said last week, when I shot the video last week, I said I don't really see a reason to be bearish here. And, you know, I wasn't long either. And I'm glad I wasn't getting overly bearish because, you know, obviously price went up. Let's take a look at a 3-day chart. So the 3-day chart, I haven't been looking at it quite as much lately. But when I do look at this, you know, it is interesting to me that this came back above. First, it tested its line of resistance, broke above it. And right now, this 3-day candle, which closes, it looks like it closes today in you know, about 7 hours. It's going to be interesting to see whether it's still above this blue line, because technically, if it's above that, that becomes support, right, on a 3-day chart. So, again, you know, mixed signals. It's like, you know, do I want to get bearish here? Not really. I don't really want to try to open a swing short there when I'm seeing this in a 3-day chart. So 3-day chart, I'll wait for the close and see where it lands at. If it can pull back below this blue line, that would make me lean pretty bearish. If it can stay above it, we might see it go up toward this downward sloping yellow line, right? Let's take a look at the daily chart. All right, so here's the daily chart, and this one's a little bit cleaner, a little bit more interesting too. If you take a look at this, right? So we have this long-term yellow line, but we're so far away from it, doesn't matter that much right now, but we have this shorter green line, right? And so we had our first touch here, this is where the line started. Second touch here, broke down through it. So I was like, maybe it's not a real line, right? But then it found support here, came up, and right here on March 29th, it found support on this same line, a perfect touch of it, and then bounced off of it. So for me, this is a valid trend line. For me, this is a valid uptrend on the daily RSI, which means that as long as we're above it, again, I'm going to be a little bit nervous about being bearish on Bitcoin. If it comes down again, though, it's going to be the 5th time it's tested it, and I would expect it's probably going to give way, okay? I wouldn't expect it to just continue holding. It's usually about the time that you're like, oh, hey, look, there's a trend line, I should trade it, that the trend line no longer works, okay? So on the daily chart, that's what I'm seeing on the RSI. I'm not really seeing any major divergences or anything that make me want to, you know, open any positions. We look at this. You know, we've got this little bit of an upward sloping trend line here. little bit shorter trend line that started back in March. You know, we're getting ready to have a touch of it, a break through it, probably going to go down and at least touch this green line down here. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm saying on the daily. The other thing to remember on the daily is we do have the 50 moving average sitting up around 75.82, and we've got the 200 moving average up around 81.42. So we did move really far away from that 200 moving average. It's entirely possible that price does, right, get that pump back up in that area. Again, I'm not saying it's probable. I'm not saying I'm going to long it. What I'm saying is if you start to see price move up, be careful trying to get in front of a moving bus, right? I think that's where a lot of people get confused. It's like, well, what do I do with that information? Well, if you see it's like in programming, right? You have these if statements. If this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. Same thing with trading. Like if you see this break, like if you see it starting to break out in a bullish fashion, you've got to know, like, what's the target? Like what's, how high is it going to go? And you never know how high it's going to go, but you might have some targets that have, like some logical reason to be there. So for example, if it starts to break north, I might say, hey, I don't want to short, 7,300 because this might be going to, 8,000. And then I'll just wait and see if it can get to 8,000. And if it does and things look good, that's the type of area that I might look to go for a swing short, right? When it gets up inside this golden zone, which also happens to have the 200 moving average in it. A couple of strong reasons that, I might want to lean bearish if price moves up there. The big problem with Bitcoin and really all assets is people get in a big hurry. They don't want to wait. They don't want to wait for it to play out. They want to do their thing. They want to do their thing. Okay, it's down. I want it to go lower, and so they're trying to short it and short it and short it. But the reality is you got to remember this just happened. This dump just happened on March 13th, right? And these past dumps, we usually consolidated for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks before the next move. So we're kind of coming up on that now. It's been 3 or 4 weeks, and the next move is probably around the corner, but we don't know which way yet, right? This could absolutely still throw a move up toward this golden pocket, toward the 200 moving average, and we still have this upward sloping trend line that never did get a bearish retest. When it collapsed, it never retested this line. So, lots of possibilities above us, okay? I tend to think it probably won't get there, but like I said in last week's video, I don't have a setup to trade. I don't have a reason to enter a short position. All I have is this gut feeling that it's probably not going to get there, right? One of the reasons that I don't think it's going to get there, guys, it has to do with volume, okay? I'm going to take these moving averages back off the chart so it's not so much spaghetti on there. But if you look at the volume is just getting lower and lower and lower, right? Back here you had tons and tons of buy volume. It was going back up, and then you had, quite a bit of buy volume all through here. This was really high volume stuff going back up, but it's getting less and less and less, which really says one simple thing. Buyers are getting less and less interested in buying Bitcoin at these levels. They're getting more and more exhausted, and eventually what happens is the flip happens where the bears take control, right? If you have a dump where price is moving down and your sell volume is also moving down, it's usually a sign your dump is starting to lose volume or kind of lose momentum, and a shift might be getting ready to occur. It's the same thing with a pump. A low volume pump is not bullish in nature. It's actually very bearish in nature, right? You want to see volume increasing on this if you really wanted to get excited. And some people got burnt a couple of days ago. There is a really simple reason not to long that breakout. Yes, there was an ascending triangle being painted. Yes, the day before it broke out, I actually posted in Discord and on Patreon saying, look, I wouldn't get bearish here. But the reason I wasn't bullish and the reason that it looks like it was probably going to be a fake breakout is because of this low volume, right? So what they do is they paint these beautiful patterns on the charts. People get all excited like, oh, this is a $3,000 triangle. If it breaks up $3,000, it's going to put us up around 10 grand, blah, blah, blah. People get all excited. They jump the gun. They try to go long as soon as it breaks out. And then what happens is it dumps back down, and it's really just a bull trap, right? That's all that was a giant bull trap. Not even a giant bull trap, small bull trap, right? Volume did not support that breakout. So many people will put all this stuff on the charts, but then you don't see volume on their chart, and it's like maybe they're using volume and they just don't have it on there. I like to take volume off a lot because I think it's ugly and it gets intertwined with the candles and stuff. But when I'm looking at a pattern and trying to decide whether or not I want to enter a trade, of course I'm going to have volume on there. Of course I'm going to consider the volume. And the volume did not support that breakout. But yeah, that's what I'm seeing on the daily chart, right? If we zoom in and we start looking at some smaller time frames, I don't think we're going to see anything different. I have not looked at Bitcoin today. I'm not trading today yet. Let's see what we got. This is a 4-hour chart. So we have a 200 moving average, right? Prices come back up. It's kind of bouncing around it, consolidating right on it. I would consider that semi-bullish in nature. We had tweezer bottoms right here. That is bullish in nature, right? Right, these two candles here. That's a reversal signal, so that's interesting. But then you're just getting these basically dojis, which is just a lot of indecision, and you also have almost no volume, right? So that's the kind of stuff that I typically just step back and just wait for the market to tell me what's happening, because this doesn't tell me anything. It just tells me that there's a lot of indecision in the marketplace and there's really low volume, which means that when one side decides that they're going to take over, you'll probably see a big volume spike, and then it's going to move in whatever direction wins that battle. Okay, so I don't want to be caught on the wrong side of that. But so far, there is this upward sloping trend line. This is going back to March 12th. You see that it had its beginning here, it had a touch here, had a third touch here, and then just exploded off of it, right? This was that false breakout right there. And now it's back inside this, what I would consider an ascending triangle, right? So that's me. Some people are calling this a rising wedge. I don't know that I would call it a rising wedge, but I don't even really, I don't know how they're getting a rising wedge out of that. They're drawing it something like this, maybe. It's bearish in nature, and I tend to lean bearish, but I don't really see it as a rising wedge. I do see it more as an ascending triangle with really weak volume. Okay, we did have a liquidity gap back here. It's right around this level, so it almost looks like this was just going up and filling in this liquidity gap. Maybe, don't know. But here's the thing, guys. There's nothing wrong with not knowing, and there's nothing wrong with just waiting. Right? You don't have to trade. I mean, you can do day trades. You can zoom in like on a 5-minute chart, and you can trade pretty much 7 days a week if you want to, right? But as far as these pivot trades, as far as these trades where you're trying to catch, okay, this is where it's getting ready to shift and go down, right? Or this is where it's getting ready to break out and have a huge run. As far as those types of trades, they don't happen on a regular basis, right? They're not happening every day. Sometimes they happen once, a week. Sometimes they happen once every couple of weeks. Sometimes if it's really crazy, you might get a couple in 1 week, but they're not a daily thing, right? Where you're catching these $500 and $1,000 moves. They've been a lot more often through here, just because I think the order books are thin and there's a lot more volatility than normal. But I mean, typically speaking, right, you're only getting a couple of those trades a month. So just remember that. Don't feel like you need to trade every single day. If you're a swing trader, you're probably not trading every single day, right? Or if you're a position trader, you might trade a couple times a year. Right? Day traders are not trading those big movements, right? Day traders are not catching from the $3,800 to the $7,000 move. That's not what a day trader does. Day traders are catching the $3,800 or if they caught it, and selling on the close of the day, right? That's why they're trading so often, is because they're trading smaller moves. But again, you have this upward sloping trend line on RSI as well, pretty far above it. So maybe that's not the valid line. Maybe that's not what's actually happening yet. But if it comes down to that, I'd be interested. This is the line that's a little bit more interesting in the short term. You had a beginning here. You had a touch here. It all looked bullish. And it looks like it fell underneath it, right? So that's actually kind of pointing toward maybe this thing sliding down toward this line down here. And, of course, down toward the bottom of this triangle. If it falls out of that, maybe that's where we get our dump. Right? One thing to remember, and I'm going to jump back over to a weekly chart, is we're going to turn everything off and we're just going to have candles and nothing else. Look at this bear market. Right? Are you noticing anything about the weekly? At no point in time in this bear market has there ever been 3 green candles. Right? from back in June, there was 2 in a row and then red. There's a couple of 1s, 2 red, 1 red, 2 red, 2 red, 1 dump. We're putting in our 3rd green weekly candle in a row, assuming this doesn't just suddenly dump before the weekly closes today. If we do that, it would be, I would use the word shocking to me to put in a 4th green candle, right? The last time we put in 4 green candles in a row was back on this huge pump in April and May of 2019, which was in this raging explosion. So I don't expect the 4th green candle. That's just me, right? If we look at a monthly chart, all this really did, let me turn everything off. All right. I'm going to change this so it only shows up on the weekly, not on the monthly. Okay. People were getting super excited about that pump, blah, 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 right? But it did 2 things. And there was 2 reasons, I already explained part of the reason I wasn't bullish on it. But the other reason that I was bearish on that pump was this. This line right here was the basic, like the neckline, if you will, of this, basically what's kind of like a big descending triangle on the monthly. Okay, so that was the neckline, and it really just retested it. And the other thing it was the yearly open, right? Right there is where our year opened at. It was $7,165, right? It was right here, and boom, bearish retest, right? If anything, that's a spot where you want to be looking for short positions, not getting bullish on Bitcoin, right? A close above that would have been bullish, but to me, it looks like this is in a downtrend, and it looks like it's going to continue its downtrend, right? So if we're looking at a monthly chart, and we draw this as, okay, here's our down, here's our up, our trend target still way down here around $3,084, which, is pretty close to this low back here. We could get that double bottom, right? Be friggin' awesome if we did, and then bounce off of it. If we lose that bottom, that's where we have to start looking at, going all the way back down here to these old, $1,000, $1,300 type levels. But yeah, right now, this is all very cliche stuff, guys. There's nothing on there that's like, oh my God, this is bullish. No, I don't see anything that's bullish. Okay, I really don't. And at this point, I'm ready to be a bull. I want to be very clear about that. My target was hit. The $4,000 was my target. That's the target that I talked about last year. That's the target that I wanted to see hit. I had talked about $1,000 a few times, but I had even said in those videos, look, I don't want this to happen. It's just a possibility. What I wanted to happen was I wanted to fill in the gap around $4,000. I wanted to buy Bitcoin, and I wanted it to go back up. So I'm ready to join the bull camp. I just can't because the charts aren't supporting a bullish stance. Okay? Over 40 minutes now. Going to look at a few more things, and then I'm going to have to wrap this one up. So if we're looking at the total market cap, we're going to look at this on a monthly chart. We do have a little bit of good news here. This was the neckline of the total market cap, and so far April is above it. Again, this is a monthly chart. We're only 5 days into the month. If we do start dumping more, this will be nothing more than a wick above it, right? We have no close above that line yet. So I would watch that line with interest. It's 185 billion roughly on the total market cap. If we look at the alt market cap, alts look a little bit healthier. Its neckline was way down here. It did close above it here, and it's still above it here. So that's interesting. But my personal opinion on alts is a very simple one. If Bitcoin is going to dump, it tends to take alts down with it, right? So I really don't want to get into this position where I'm trying to long alts with fiat. Now, if I'm longing it with Bitcoin, where I'm trying to trade for sats on the little bit of Bitcoin that I have, sure, but not so much with fiat. This is the Bitcoin dominance chart, and you can see that it is still being well respected, right? I still think that could be some type of ascending triangle, and that we're still inside of that triangle, so that's worth watching. Depending on how you draw this, if you draw it where you chop out some of these tails back here, which Not a big fan of doing, but if you draw it like that, it does look like it's been consolidating right on that line, right on the bottom of that triangle. So if it falls out of that and starts moving down, that could be where some of those alts start to move up against Bitcoin. Again, I'm not a huge fan of drawing it that way. I think right now it's, the safer play is just to be patient. So that's what I'm personally doing. What everybody else does, that's up to them. I don't tell people what to do. But me personally, I'm just going to be patient, right? Capital preservation is my thing right now. I want to make sure that I'm preserving as much capital as I can so that when I get a clear signal that the bottom is in both the stock market and in cryptocurrency, when I get a clear signal that the bottom is in, that's where I want to start putting in my capital, right? I don't want to get chopped up. I don't want to get to the party early and then watch it drop another 30, 40, 50, 100%, right? I just don't. So with all that being said, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the chart section of this video. Again, a lot of people were asking about my trading course, what was inside the trading course, and I said for the last 4 or 5 months I would eventually do a video showing you guys that. So for those of you interested in the trading course, this is the trading course here. It's literally just called Crypto Common Sense, and this is the members area. It's hosted on a site called ClickFunnels, which is just a site people use for funnels and memberships and things like that. And basically, it's just a course on technical analysis, right? Get the welcome video, telling you what to expect. It's got the TradingView video explaining how to use TradingView, because TradingView is a little bit confusing when you first start. Got a video on a trade journal, which is an essential part of being a trader, right? Writing down your entries, your exits, why you took the trade, why you exited the trade, right? Whether you made money, whether you lost money, all that kind of stuff, so that you can learn from that. Got videos on BitMEX and Robinhood. Most people know how to use, Coinbase and Binance and stuff like that, but not everybody is traded on BitMEX, so I do a walkthrough on that. Also, not everybody is traded on Robinhood, so I do a walkthrough on that. Not near as big of a fan of Robinhood these days because they had some downtime last month, which I find completely unacceptable. But some of the other crypto exchanges have had the same problem, so it is still an option. Got videos on all the fundamentals that I personally use, things like candlestick charts, line charts, RSI, bullish divergences, bearish divergences, hidden divergences, trend lines for price and RSI, some examples of that, all the different moving averages I used, the exponential moving averages, how to use golden pockets, Fibonacci levels, Fibonacci extensions, support, resistance, and of course gaps. We got the video, that's the third time I clicked that button, got the video on the different patterns that I use. Not all patterns, there's tons of patterns, but things like double tops, double bottoms, cups and handle, triangles, wedges, and head and shoulders. I got some candlestick patterns. Right now there's only one video in there for that. I'll probably add more, but probably not too much. I don't trade candlestick patterns a whole lot. There's just one that I really like is the tweezer tops and tweezer bottoms, so I go through that. Talk about money management, which is actually probably the most important part of trading. Talk about position sizing, stop losses, risk management, how to cover your trades, and fees. And for those of you that are like, what do you mean fees? Guys, fees are a huge deal. My most expensive month in 2019, I believe, was July or August, and I paid almost $4,000 in fees for my trades. So it's a huge deal, right? A lot of people are like, fees, who cares? It's only a fraction percent. No, it adds up, and you really need to be mindful of how you're doing your trades to optimize that fee stuff. Because, if you're doing every single trade as a taker, right, and you're trading on a site like Coinbase, for example, you're probably paying, 0.5% or 1% every time you trade, right? Massive. So for me, my worst month as far as fees was, like I said, was right around $3,800, which was just insane. And that was actually the month that I decided to start trading on BitMEX because their fees are so much cheaper than at the time I was using Kraken. And even with my volume discount, I had traded over $1 million in volume that month. So I had a big volume discount. Even with my volume discount, I paid almost $4,000. So I'll talk about all that in the course. And then I have a whole section on putting it all together: limit orders, market orders, retest, understanding the different time frames, how to set up alerts so that you're not staring at charts nonstop, and then a video on volume and how to use volume with your trading. And then the last section, which I'm not going to show here, is actually my trade setups. Most of those are trade setups that I actually came up with myself, because when I was taking courses on stock trading and when I was buying books on stock trading, the setups that they taught did not work in cryptocurrency, at least not for me. I had no luck with them, so I had to kind of modify stuff and come up with my own stuff. Just a little tweaking here and there, basically. So I walk through that as well. So that's the course, guys. One thing I will say about the course is, look, I believe 100% that the course is something that can be a life-changing venture for people. If you've never traded before, if you are, kind of one of these people who you do a little trading, but you're really not trading, you're gambling, right? You're just kind of guessing, right? This is the type of information that could be very helpful for you. This is the type of information that if I had had access to this course in 2017, not only would I not have lost money in the 2018 bear market, but I firmly believe I would have made far more money in the 2017 bear market. Because like most people, when I got started, I was having all these wins, because it was 2017 where it was super easy. So I was making money, and instead of really learning technical analysis and instead of learning how to trade properly, I was very arrogant and thought, I got this figured out, I don't need that shit. And then when 2018 rolled around, of course I lost tons and tons of money. I lost all of my gains because I was still trying to trade 2018 like I did 2017. And that's really what made me learn to trade, was losing money in 2018. I had to sit down and say, okay, what did I do wrong and how do I fix this? So I firmly believe that this course is a life-changing course for people, okay? That being said, I also firmly believe in, keeping everybody happy and being fair with everybody. So there's going to be a link in the description where you can grab this course, okay? It's $297. I'll just tell you right now, it's $297. It's a one-time fee for the year, okay? So it recurs every year, and that's just because obviously it costs money to host it. But it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And there's no catch. There's no, well, show me you did this and show me you did that and prove me that you tried it. No, none of that shit. If you go through the course and you're not happy with it, let me know. I'll refund your money. You have 30 days to check it out. That simple. Okay? The only thing I ask is you use a little bit of integrity, you use a little bit of honesty, and you don't defraud me by going through the entire course and then just asking for your money back. To date, not a single person has asked for a refund of this course ever. Okay, so trust me when I say I know it's worth every penny, right? So again, there's going to be a link down in the description. Be sure and check it out. You can join the course down there. You can also join the Patron if you decide to. And of course, you can pay for the more frequent updates with cryptocurrency if you decide to. As always, guys, please remember that I am literally just some guy sitting in a spare bedroom. So nothing in this video is financial advice. Nothing in this video is trade advice. You should always do your own due diligence and seek out professional investment advice before making any type of investment in cryptocurrency. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And again, this is James with Crypto Common Sense reminding you to please trade safe.